She chose a stranger as her groom. The cowboy asked, "Why not the man standing in front of you?" The small town of Willow Creek was not used to big events. Most days were quiet, filled with the sounds of horses, wagons, and people going about their simple lives. But today was different. Today, the whole town had gathered near the old wooden chapel at the edge of the fields. White cloth ribbons were tied to posts, moving gently in the warm breeze. Fresh wildflowers were placed along the path, their soft colors bright against the dusty ground. People stood close together, whispering and watching with curious eyes. Everyone was here for one reason. Clara Whitmore was getting married. Clara was known in the town as kind, calm, and thoughtful. She had lived there her whole life, helping her father at their small store. Many people had always believed she would marry someone from Willow Creek. But today, she was marrying a stranger. The man stood near the front, dressed in a clean suit. His boots looked new, not worn like the others in town. His face was serious, and he spoke very little. No one knew much about him. He had arrived only a few weeks ago, bringing with him stories of a better life in a bigger place. Some people said Clara was lucky. Others were not so sure. Clara stood quietly near the altar, wearing a simple white dress. Her hands were folded together, and her face looked peaceful. But if someone looked closely, they would see something else in her eyes, something uncertain. The preacher opened his book and looked at the couple, ready to begin. The crowd slowly became silent. Even the wind seemed to slow down. Just as the preacher was about to speak, a sound came from the distance. Hoofbeats. At first they were soft, then louder. People turned their heads. Dust rose on the far road as a horse came racing toward the chapel. The rider did not slow down until he reached the edge of the gathering. The horse stopped suddenly. The rider jumped down. It was Ethan Cole. A few people in the crowd whispered his name. Everyone in Willow Creek knew Ethan. He was a cowboy who worked hard, spoke little, and kept to himself. He had lived in the town for years, helping people when needed, but never asking for anything in return. His clothes were dusty from travel, his boots were worn, his face looked tired, but his eyes were sharp and focused. He had ridden a long way. Ethan walked forward slowly. The crowd moved aside without a word, creating a path for him. No one tried to stop him. Clara saw him. For a moment, her calm expression broke. Her eyes widened slightly, and her hands tightened together. Ethan stopped a few steps away from her. The preacher looked confused. The stranger looked surprised. The town stood completely still. Ethan took a breath. Then he spoke. "Why not the man standing in front of you?" His voice was not loud, but it was clear enough for everyone to hear. A wave of shock passed through the crowd. Some people looked at each other. Others simply stared. The stranger turned to Ethan. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice calm but unsure. But Ethan did not look at him. He only looked at Clara. Clara's heart began to beat faster. She had not expected this. Not today. Not like this. "You came all this way just to say that?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded once. "I came because I couldn't stay away," he said. The wind moved through the ribbons again, making a soft sound. The preacher closed his book slowly, unsure of what to do next. Clara looked down for a moment. Her thoughts felt heavy. Memories filled her mind, long days in town, quiet talks, shared smiles that never turned into words. Then she looked back at Ethan. "You had your chance," she said. Her voice was gentle, but there was truth in it. Ethan did not argue. "I know," he said, "and I was wrong to stay silent." The crowd listened closely. No one moved. "I thought you understood," he continued. "I thought you could see what I never said." Clara shook her head slowly. "I waited," she replied. "But waiting is not the same as hearing the truth." The stranger stood quietly beside her. He did not interrupt. He simply watched, trying to understand what was happening. Ethan took another step forward. "I never wanted to lose you," he said, "but I was afraid that if I spoke, things would change." Clara's eyes softened, but her voice stayed steady. And now they have changed anyway, she said. For a moment, no one spoke. The sun shined brightly above them. The quiet town, the simple people, the open sky, all were watching this moment. A wedding had stopped, and something else had begun. The air in Willow Creek felt different now. The wedding had stopped, but no one had left. People stood in quiet groups, watching and waiting. No one wanted to miss what would happen next. It was no longer just a wedding. It had become something deeper. Clara stood still near the altar. The white ribbons around her moved gently in the wind, but she did not move. Her thoughts were loud, even though everything around her was quiet. Ethan stood a few steps away from her. His hat was still in his hand now, and his eyes had not left her face. He looked nervous, but also sure of one thing. He was not leaving this time. The stranger, the man she was meant to marry, stepped back a little. He gave them space, his face calm and respectful. He understood that something important was happening, something he could not interrupt. Clara finally spoke. "Why today, Ethan?" she asked. Her voice was soft, but it carried clearly. Ethan looked down for a second, then back at her. "Because I heard you were getting married," he said, "and it didn't feel right to stay away anymore." Clara's eyes showed a mix of emotions, surprise, sadness, and something else she was trying to hide. "So you only came because I was leaving?" she asked. Ethan paused. "No," he said slowly. "I came because I realized I should have spoken long ago." The crowd listened closely. Even the wind seemed to stop again. Clara took a small step forward. "I waited for you, Ethan," she said, "for a long time." Her words were simple, but they carried years of quiet feelings. Ethan's face changed slightly. There was regret in his eyes now. "I know," he said, "and I'm sorry." Clara shook her head. "Sorry doesn't change the past," she replied. Ethan nodded. "I'm not trying to change the past," he said. "I just want a chance to be honest now." The stranger looked at Clara, then at Ethan. He could see that this was not a simple moment. This was not about today only. It was about many days before. Clara looked at the ground for a moment, then back at Ethan. "You always stood near me," she said. "You helped me. You stayed close. But you never said anything." Ethan took a slow breath. "I thought actions were enough," he said. Clara gave a small, sad smile. "They are not," she said. "Not when the heart needs words, too." Ethan understood that now. "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid that if I spoke, I might lose what we already had." Clara's eyes softened again. "But by staying silent," she said, "you still lost it." Those words stayed in the air for a moment. Ethan could not deny it. "You're right," he said quietly. For a moment, everything felt still again. The stranger then spoke, his voice calm and kind. "Clara," he said, "you don't have to rush this." Everyone looked at him. "This is your choice," he continued, "and it should be clear in your heart." Clara looked at him with respect. He was not angry. He was not upset. He was giving her the space she needed. "Thank you," she said softly. Then she turned back to Ethan. "Do you know what hurt the most?" she asked. Ethan shook his head slightly. "You made me feel like I had to guess," she said, "like I had to understand something you never said." Ethan's grip on his hat tightened. "I didn't mean to make you feel that way," he said. "But you did," Clara replied gently. The truth was not harsh, but it was clear. Ethan stepped a little closer, but still kept a respectful distance. "I can't change what I didn't say before," he said, "but I can speak now." Clara looked into his eyes. She wanted to believe him, but she also needed to be sure. "And what are you saying now?" she asked. Ethan took a deep breath. "I'm saying that you matter to me," he said, "more than anything in this town, more than anything I've worked for." The crowd listened in silence. "I stayed because of you," he continued. "I built my life here because I hoped one day I would be brave enough to tell you." Clara's heart beat faster again. "Hope is quiet," she said, "but life is not. Sometimes we need to hear things clearly." Ethan nodded. "Then hear me now," he said. "I don't want to lose you again." The words were simple, but they were honest. Clara looked away for a moment. The open sky above her felt wide and endless. Her future stood in front of her in two different paths. One was safe, clear, and known. The other was uncertain, but full of truth. She closed her eyes for a second. Then she opened them again, and everything was about to change. The quiet town of Willow Creek waited. No one spoke. No one moved. It felt like even time had slowed down just to see what Clara would do next. Clara stood between two different futures. On one side was the stranger, a man who had come with clear plans, a stable life, and no confusion. He had offered her something simple and safe. On the other side was Ethan, the cowboy who had been part of her life for years, but who had never spoken his heart until today. Clara looked at both men. Then she spoke. "I need to understand something," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the weight in it. She looked at Ethan first. "If I was not getting married today, would you still be here?" she asked. The question surprised him. Ethan did not answer right away. He thought carefully, because this time he did not want to hide behind silence again. "I don't know," he said honestly. The crowd reacted quietly. Some people looked surprised, but Clara did not. She nodded slowly. "That's the truth," she said. Ethan stepped a little closer. "But I wish I had come sooner," he added. "I wish I had said everything before today." Clara looked into his eyes. "Wishing is easy," she said, "but living with choices is not." Ethan understood that. He had lived with his silence for too long. Then Clara turned to the stranger. "You came into my life with clear words," she said. "You told me what you wanted. You gave me a future I could see." The stranger nodded. "I only offered what I could," he said simply. Clara gave a small smile. "And you were honest," she said. The stranger looked at Ethan for a moment, then back at Clara. "You deserve honesty," he said, "not confusion." His voice was calm, with no anger. He stood with quiet respect, not trying to win, not trying to push. That made Clara think even more. She stepped away from the altar and walked a few steps forward, as if trying to create space for her thoughts. The soft sound of her dress moving in the wind was the only thing anyone could hear. She remembered many things. She remembered Ethan fixing a broken fence without being asked. She remembered him bringing supplies during a hard winter. She remembered quiet evenings when they sat close but said very little. There had always been something between them, but it had never been clear. Then she remembered the stranger. He had come and spoken clearly. He had asked her directly. He had not made her wait or guess. Clara stopped walking. She turned back slowly. "Both of you gave me something," she said. The two men listened carefully. "You," she said, looking at the stranger, "gave me certainty." Then she turned to Ethan. "And you gave me something else, something I never fully understood." Ethan took a small step forward. "What was that?" he asked. Clara paused. "Something that felt like it could be more," she said. Her words were simple, but they held deep meaning. Ethan's heart felt heavy and hopeful at the same time. "I never wanted to confuse you," he said. Clara gave a soft, almost sad smile. "But you did," she replied. There was no anger in her voice, only truth. Ethan lowered his head for a moment. "I thought staying close was enough," he said. Clara shook her head. "Being close is not the same as being clear," she answered. Those words stayed in the air like a lesson. The stranger then spoke again. "Clara," he said gently, "You don't owe me anything." Everyone looked at him again. "If your heart is not here," he continued, "then it's better to be honest now." Clara felt a deep respect for him. He was not holding her back. He was not making it harder. He was letting her choose freely. That made her decision even more important. Clara looked up at the sky. The sun was still bright. The day was still warm. But inside her, everything felt different. She took a deep breath. Then she looked at Ethan again. "If I choose you," she said slowly, "what will be different?" Ethan understood that this was his moment. No more silence, no more waiting. "This time, I won't stay quiet," he said. "I will say what I feel. I will not let you guess again." Clara watched him closely. "And if things become difficult?" she asked. "They will," Ethan said honestly, "but I will stay and I will speak. I won't hide behind silence anymore." Clara listened carefully. For the first time, she felt like she was truly hearing him. Not guessing, not hoping, hearing. The crowd still stood quietly, waiting. Clara looked at both men again. One offered a clear path. The other offered a promise to change. Her heart felt pulled in two directions, but deep inside, she was starting to understand what she truly wanted. And her final choice was getting closer. The whole town of Willow Creek stood still, waiting for Clara's final decision. The soft wind moved through the white ribbons, and the flowers along the path swayed gently. The sky was clear, wide and open, just like the moment in front of her. Clara stood quietly. Her heart was no longer confused, but it was still heavy. She looked at both men one more time. The stranger stood calm and patient. He had not moved much, but his presence was steady. He had offered her a life that was simple to understand, a life with clear plans, no guessing, no waiting. Then she looked at Ethan. He stood there with his hat in his hands, no longer hiding anything. His eyes were honest now, open in a way they had never been before. He was no longer silent. For the first time, Clara could truly see both paths clearly. She took a deep breath. "I think I understand now," she said softly. The crowd leaned in, listening closely. Clara walked slowly toward the stranger first. "You came into my life with honesty," she said. "You spoke clearly, and you gave me respect. You didn't make things confusing." The stranger nodded slightly. "I only wanted to offer you a good life," he said. Clara smiled gently. "And you did," she replied. "You showed me what it feels like when someone speaks openly." There was kindness in her voice, and everyone could feel it. "But," she continued softly, "a good life is not only about what is safe." The stranger understood. He did not interrupt. He simply listened. Clara then turned. This time she walked toward Ethan. Each step felt important. Each step felt like a choice. Ethan looked at her, not moving, not speaking. He knew this moment belonged to her. Clara stopped in front of him. "For a long time," she said, "I thought you didn't care." Ethan's eyes lowered slightly. "I know," he said quietly. "But now I see something different," Clara continued. "I see that you were afraid, not uncaring." Ethan looked up again. "Yes," he said. "I was afraid to lose what we had." Clara nodded. "And because of that," she said, "you almost lost everything." Ethan did not argue. "You're right," he said. Clara looked at him closely. "But today," she continued, "you came here. You spoke. You didn't stay silent." Ethan held her gaze. "I won't stay silent again," he said. Those words felt strong. Not perfect, not easy, but true. Clara's heart felt lighter now. She realized something important. It was not just about the past. It was about what would happen next. She turned slightly, looking at both men again. I had two choices, she said. One was clear from the start. The other became clear only today. The town stayed quiet. Clara took a slow breath. I don't want to spend my life wondering what if, she said. Her words were simple, but full of meaning. She stepped closer to Ethan. I wanted you to choose me, she said, not just stand beside me. Ethan's voice was steady now. I am choosing you, he said, right here. No more silence, no more waiting. Clara felt those words deeply. This time she did not have to guess. This time she could hear the truth. She smiled, a real smile, one that had been missing before. Then she turned to the stranger. I'm sorry, she said kindly. You deserve someone who is sure from the beginning. The stranger gave a small, understanding smile. And you deserve to follow your heart, he replied. There was no anger in his voice, only respect. He stepped back, giving her space. The crowd slowly relaxed, though they were still watching closely. Clara turned back to Ethan. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Everything that had been left unsaid for so long was finally clear. Well, Clara said softly, with a light smile, you finally said something worth waiting for. Ethan let out a small breath, almost like he had been holding it for years. I should have said it sooner, he said. Clara nodded. Yes, she replied, but you said it now. That was enough. Ethan stepped a little closer, careful and respectful. Clara did not step back. The space between them, once filled with silence, was now filled with understanding. The preacher closed his book gently. The wedding had not happened as planned, but something better had taken its place. The people of Willow Creek began to smile, whispering softly to each other. They had come to see a wedding, but they had witnessed something more real. Clara looked up at the open sky. For the first time that day, she felt calm. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything was finally clear. And under that wide, endless sky, she chose the man who finally chose her back.